As we approach this new lecture topic, I wanted to point out that the National Geographic Society issued a series of grants starting in the year 2000 to search for places where there was excellent health in people that lived to their 90s and 100 and over in different areas of the globe. And they have used their influence and capabilities to have two sections in their magazine and publish 5 books. They have a ongoing announcements on the web. They have done a Netflix video segment, and the society has its own TV channel. So in this grant that they call the Blue Zones with longevity and better health, they point out that there are common denominators for all the sites where this is happening. And one of the most important things that people can do is a plant-based diet. And in all these areas, the individuals have personal gardens, but there are other points that are important, including exercise. And a book has been written about the importance of finding a purpose in life. And I mention this because there are, in the lifestyles of these people in the blue zones, there are minor points that are important. And in this lecture, we're going to point on research that's been done on something that was a surprise to me about the importance of brushing your teeth, which seems to be quite minor in regard to all the major health problems that individuals have. So we'll go to the first slide. Thank you. I mentioned these blue zones because I think the influence and the financial strength of the National Geographic Society is going to do more to inform the public in general, because National Geographic sends magazines to virtually every library on the planet. And one of the things that hit me when reading about this is that since 1994, with the passage of the Dietary Supplement Health and Education Act, which is known as DSHEA, we have been seeing different aspects of the blue zones by the more comprehensive nutrition that is available through the new legislation that established the dietary supplement industry. And the point was that these blue zones are isolated islands or peninsulas where people have very primitive life, and one need not move there to get these benefits if you start with the first thing of improving the choices you have in your diet and having a broad diet and having lifestyles. And part of the lifestyle is the minor thing of the dental thing, which we'll cover in this. And the dietary choices is primarily plant consumption. And as we have done in other lectures, that if 40 to 50% of your plant food is raw, it is more health promoting. And that there should be, in addition to this, daily routines of exercise with a minimum of about 3 miles a week, about whatever you choose to do for activity. So dietary choices and activity are two of the principal common denominators of all these blue zones. And the important thing about diet and lifestyles that you get longevity and good health, and you have people in their 90s living independently, and this is a safe, effective, and most important economical way for health management, which is very important in these inflationary times when things that we have to have for everyday life have really increased in price. Now, in oral hygiene, everyone has a mouth and gums and teeth, and the mucosa of the mouth is a moist surface for which bacteria love to grow. And everybody's mouth has bacteria in it, but the bacteria in your mouth are not the species of bacteria that there's worldwide research being done that bacteria in the large bowel uh, are different bacteria, and they work on the food to alter its molecular structure to make it water soluble so that nutrients can be absorbed into the serum and pumped by the heart in the blood around to the different organs. And this was not just a totally surprise to me because I had read a article from a soybean conference held in Belgium that soybeans are a storehouse of multiple nutrients. But in nature, these nutrients are protected from being water soluble, that allows bacteria and fungus to utilize them for food. They have a sugar molecule that is attached to the end of these nutrients that make them water insoluble so that the bacteria can't destroy or utilize, would be a better word, the nutrients. And there are bacteria in the large bowel that are typically called friendly or bifidobacteria that work by enzymes to remove this sugar attached, a monosaccharide, and the nutrient becomes water soluble and can be absorbed into the serum. And of course, then in the serum, it's pumped around to all the cells. And this nutrient can be metabolized in cellular synthesis that is essential in every cell. And the question is, does brushing the teeth influence quality of life? And that's what we're centered on this, a small thing in lifestyle. And it's a major human challenge, I think, for human beings to do and execute what they know should be done for good health. And if one does minor tasks, the major tasks will probably be executed. And if one does the major tasks, well, the minor tasks seem to be quite easy to do and are more common. And of course, that gets into teeth brushing. And of course, the question is, does brushing the tooth influence human health status? Now, in the journal Nature, there's a publication in 1,675 patients that were followed 20 years and over. And these patients were initially located because they had surgical procedures and were receiving drug treatment from a professional. And they were divided into four groups of this 1,675 people. Those that brush their teeth morning only, night only, and didn't brush their teeth at all of this group of patients. And it was found by analyzing these in regard to cardiovascular health status, and that means particularly heart attacks and strokes and peripheral vascular disease that ends up your toes, your feet, different aspects of your legs being surgically amputated due to inadequate blood circulation. That in regard to cardiovascular disease, that brushing your teeth only in the morning was inadequate. It had no influence on the health. But if you brush the teeth only once a day, but it was at night, this got some benefit. And that no brushing either morning or night was bad for cardiovascular health. And if you didn't brush your teeth, but you also smoked burning tobacco, such as cigarettes, was the worst condition of all these over 1,600 patients. And they also went into these patients that examining the loss of teeth, the number of caries that had to be taken care of, the incidence of gum infections. And sometimes they cultured the oral bacteria. And they also often, this was a mirror of bad health in the oral cavity, that periodontal disease was increased, and so was cardiovascular disease. And in this cardiovascular disease, not a common thing, but a frequency of bacteria getting on the cardiac leaflets, the valves of the heart, can cause myocarditis. And I had a friend that was older, and he actually died of this. And this can come from bad periodontal disease, which is not as common as the cardiovascular type problems that we mentioned initially. Now, in the European Journal of Clinical Investigation, they did an instance of various diseases in 5,000 or 5,000 to 10,000 patients, and their ages range from 39 to 79 years old. And they compared those that regularly brush their teeth with those that never brush their teeth. Just that was the only criteria. And those that never brushed their teeth had higher major cardiovascular incidence of disease of 12%. In this cardiovascular disease, the strokes were 8% higher than those that didn't brush. Also, cerebral hemorrhage was 18% higher than those that brushed, 15% for myocardial infarcts or heart attacks, and then 22%, the highest, for pulmonary heart disease, because pulmonary blood pressure is a difficult and condition to manage medically, and it would be very desirable to avoid that if you could just brush your teeth regularly. The incidence of cancer was 9% higher in those that didn't brush their teeth. And obstructive pulmonary disease of a chronic nature is 12% higher. And of all these conditions, liver cirrhosis or fibrosis of the liver was 25% in those that never brush their teeth. And in this patient of about 500,000 patients, it seemed like brushing the teeth had no effect on type 2 diabetes, which is a common problem, or in chronic kidney disease. Now, the World Health Organization has data, and they state that globally about 41 million people die of chronic disease. So that chronic disease is about 74% of all deaths. And the higher risk for death due to chronic disease associated with one, smoking, burning tobacco, and bringing the volatilized chemicals that are in tobacco, which are up to 7,000 different types of volatilized chemicals that the temperature of the cigarette makes into a gas that's brought into the lungs and absorbed. And people that have unhealthy lifestyles and habits contribute to chronic disease. And the lack of exercise, being sedentary and obese, increases chronic disease. And contrary to the blue zones, with their good diets, poor diets and poor choices of what you eat contribute to chronic disease. And number 5, they pointed out in this study that rarely brushing one's teeth contributes to increasing chronic disease. Now, I don't have the source of this experimental question, but it was in the article I'm referring to. They asked the question, does brushing teeth relate to chronic disease incidence? And the number of patients in this study was 18,158, and they averaged 61 years of age. And what they did was, do you brush your teeth at least once a day or not at all? That was the simple question. And those that brush their teeth once a day had a 50% less problem of chronic diseases as those that never brush their teeth. Those that never brush their teeth had a 40% increase in cardiovascular disease that we mentioned before, the types of problems you have health-wise. That 15% had nutritional or metabolic diseases, which the diabetes 2 comes in through. 4% had muscular skeletal disease, 2% had GI tract, gastrointestinal tract disease, 2% had respiratory disease, and 2% had genital urinary disease, higher just by brushing the teeth once a day versus not brushing your teeth at all. Now, in the British Journal of Medicine, the entire United Kingdom nation is under a government medicine medical care, which is 15 million people. And this, in looking at their data, they compared persons with no dental disease, which they have everything in those computerized records, with those that have coded gingivitis and periodontal disease, and they're having to see dentists and have it managed. And that those that have gingivitis and periodontal disease have an 18% higher cardiovascular disease, which we've seen before. They have a 7% higher metabolic disease, which we said diabetes 2 is right in there. But most interesting, 33% had an autoimmune disease, and that is an autoantibody, oftentimes triggered by various bacteria, that there is a sequence on the cell wall of cells in the body. Then there are about 80 different types of tissue in the human body. And depending on which tissue that this autoantibody attaches to, causes these different syndromes of immune disease. And this is 33% higher because you have all these bacteria in your gingivitis and your periodontal tissues interacting with the blood supply that comes to the jaw and gums. And I was surprised to see that the incidence of mental illness in these 15 million people in government medicine is a 37% higher incidence of mental disease if people have gingivitis and periodontal disease. So brushing your teeth is very healthy, even though it seems to be a minor thing, and that's based on the largest group that we will have anything to do. Now, in Japan, they also have a national health system, and they have millions in this, but not as big as the United Kingdom. And the experimental question they ask in their computer base is, does oral health relate to mental disease after seeing such a high percentage in the UK? And so the way they approached it in Japan is the number of teeth they had. And if the individual had such chronic caries and gum disease that they only had 0 to 10 teeth, there was a 71% higher incidence of mental impairment compared to patients that had 22 to 32 teeth. And of course, you have to have good oral and gingival health to retain 22 to 32 teeth in this huge database for Japan, central computer for their population. Now, in the European Heart Journal in the year 2019, this is the only prospective interventional database study. And these individuals were a population that was 114 months or 9.5 years, that the people in the study had a median age of 52 years. And these were people that brush their teeth 3 times a day compared to zero brushing or 1 time a day. And what might this instance of brushing your teeth have in regard to disease frequency? And there were 2,407, 696 patients, about 250,000. And in this huge number, 19% had lower cardiovascular disease, which we see over and over again. And added to this group that brush their teeth, they had a higher incidence of having professional teeth cleaning. And if they did that, that reduced the cardiovascular disease 14%. So the conclusion of this European Heart Journal was that dental health has a significant impact on cardiovascular events, which we have outlined before. Now, again, the blue zones that the World Health Organization has noted, and the point that I like to make is that by more comprehensive nutrition, supported by adding to your diet nutrient molecules that are in dietary supplements, that we were seeing different percentages of the benefits of blue zones, starting with the new law that canonized and made it legal to have dietary supplements, and that you don't have to move to an isolated island or a primitive peninsula in some third world country to get the benefits. And one of the best examples of that is that on a religious basis, followed by guidance of the Hebrew scriptures, that the Loma Linda Church Group of Loma Linda, California, are one of the blue zones in almost a suburb, you might say, of Los Angeles, but in California. So it's a highly populated modern area. But these people implement by choice and by religious guidance some of the common denominators of the blue zones. And so that further supports our observation that with dietary supplements, we're getting some of the benefits of the blue zones, which is longevity and good health. And this longevity raises some questions. And with a researcher, we published a paper that 670 people, by adding the dietary supplements that I have worked with since for 39 years, starting in 1985, that various nutrients, low or common in the modern diet chain of the United States, that if you add those to your general diet, that you can get a significant portion of the blue zone matter. And if you add exercise to it, it's even higher. But you don't have to move to an isolated island or primitive zone to get good health and longevity. And in addition to this study of 670 people that reversed the objective biomarkers associated with the disabilities of aging, one of those individuals had his telomeres assayed. And telomeres are caps on the end of chromosomes that protect the DNA from damage. And there are various metabolic and even mutational damage that can occur to the chromosomes that control cellular synthesis of bioactive molecules that run the biochemistry of life. And this individual was 72 years old, and his telomeres, along with reversing his objective biomarkers associated with aging, was that of about a 55-year-old. He was very excited. Well, this got my attention. And since I had been adding these dietary supplements to my diet, particularly the active ingredient from the aloe vera leaf gel, acemannan, since 1985, at that time I was 80 years old and I had my telomeres assayed, and my telomeres were that of a 55 to 65-year-old. And many people looking at me and being around me do not think that I'm in my high 80s. So we are seeing uh, benefits from not only brushing your teeth, which I do at least, I'd say 2 or 3 times a day, but also by the choices of food that the Blue Zones uncovered. And so that is the data that is available to indicate that brushing your teeth, which seems to be a minor activity, decreases the incidence of significant chronic diseases, particularly in the cardiovascular field, but in actually all chronic diseases.